Have you ever noticed how a clean room can change the way your mind feels? Not in a big cinematic way, just quietly. Like you walk in and before you even think, your body does this tiny exhale, a soft release you didn't realize you were holding. It's almost weird, isn't it? You clear a counter or fold a blanket or straighten a few things on a shelf, and suddenly the world feels less sharp, less heavy, less loud. People talk about cleaning like it's a chore, but there's something deeper happening there. Something psychological, something almost emotional. Because for certain people, maybe people like you, organizing doesn't just make the room look better, it makes you feel better. And you don't even fully understand why. You just know that when things are out of place, your mind feels out of place with them. There's this static humming in the background of your thoughts. Not panic, not stress, just a low-level tension, the kind that keeps you slightly on edge without ever announcing itself. But the second you start putting things back, the second the room starts to make sense again, your mind follows. Everything clicks into a softer rhythm. Psychologists would say something like, it reduces cognitive load, or the brain relaxes when the environment sends fewer signals. Which is true, but that language misses the soul of it, because the real experience feels more like this. When your surroundings calm down, you calm down. When the room stops shouting for your attention, your thoughts stop fighting for space. And when everything finally sits where it belongs, you feel like you belong in your own life again. Organizing isn't about being neat or disciplined or type A. It's about something much more human, wanting the outside world to stop overwhelming the inside world. And maybe that's why cleaning feels peaceful. Not because the room changed, but because you change with it. There's this thing your brain does, quietly, in the background, that most people never really notice. Every object in a room, every cup, every jacket, every paper, every "I'll deal with it later," your mind keeps track of it. Not consciously, but like a silent to-do list you never wrote down. And for some people, that background noise doesn't stay in the background. They feel it, like pressure, like clutter inside the mind that matches the clutter outside it. So when a room is messy, they don't just think, oh, I should clean. They think, something feels off and I don't know why. It's not drama, it's not perfectionism, it's cognitive load. Your brain burning energy it shouldn't have to burn. People who love organizing are often just more sensitive to that load. Not weaker, not OCD, just more attuned to how their environment speaks to them. Because a messy room talks. It whispers reminders, unfinished tasks, old decisions you haven't made, little signals that pile up until your mind feels crowded. But a clean room, that's silence, that's safety, that's your brain finally unclenching. Psychologists call it environmental safety cues, your surroundings telling your nervous system, you're okay, there's nothing to defend against. But again, the scientific language misses the humanity. Because what it really feels like is this: when everything is where it belongs, you feel like you're where you belong. And it goes deeper. There's identity tied to this. People who love order, they don't just want a clean space. They want a space that reflects their inner self, their values, their standards, their sense of who they are when life isn't pulling them apart. A cluttered room feels like a contradiction, like the environment is telling a story that doesn't match the person living in it. So when they organize, they're not just tidying things, they're aligning the world with the version of themselves they actually recognize, the one that feels grounded, clear, whole. There's something else that happens when you start organizing, something deeper than being neat or liking things tidy. It's this strange feeling of coming back into yourself, because when life gets overwhelming, when your thoughts scatter, when your emotions are pulling in 5 different directions, you reach for the one place where effort still equals outcome, your environment. Not because you're avoiding your problems, but because your brain is looking for something solid to hold on to, a place where you can create clarity when everything else feels murky. Psychologists call this micro-control. It's when your mind says, if I can't fix the big thing, let me fix the small thing. Not out of desperation, but out of survival. It's your nervous system stabilizing itself through action. And that's why cleaning can feel almost strangely therapeutic. You pick up one item and your breathing evens out. You wipe a surface and the noise inside your head softens. You put something exactly where it belongs and suddenly there's a tiny spark of order inside you. It's not the room you're calming, it's your mind. Some people feel this more intensely than others. They don't clean because they're stressed. They clean to stop being stressed. It's their reset button, their grounding ritual, their way of telling their body, you're not powerless, you're not stuck, you can shape something. And maybe you felt this too, that moment when one drawer turns into two turns into rearranging the whole shelf, and suddenly you have this momentum you didn't have an hour ago. Not because you became motivated, but because you found traction in a world that felt slippery. Organizing becomes a quiet kind of self-regulation, a way to turn emotional chaos into physical clarity, a way to take everything swirling inside you and translate it into something tangible you can actually move. And sometimes that's the only thing that keeps you from unraveling. There's also a kind of memory to all of this, a feeling you don't consciously think about, but your body does. Because the peace you feel in an organized space, it didn't start in adulthood. It's older than that. It comes from somewhere deeper. Maybe you grew up in a home where things were calm only when the house was clean. Maybe order meant safety. Maybe chaos meant tension. And without even realizing it, your nervous system learned a language long before you had words for it. Or maybe it was the opposite. Maybe things were unpredictable, messy in ways that had nothing to do with objects. And you learned early on that the one thing you could control was your space, your room, your little corner of the world. So now as an adult, organizing doesn't feel like work. It feels like returning. Like your body is following a script it memorized years ago. When I make things orderly, I feel safer. Psychologists call this environmental imprinting. But that phrase doesn't really capture the tenderness of it. Because the truth is, for a lot of people, a clean space feels like childhood in the moments when childhood felt okay. Not perfect, not magical, just settled. And sometimes when you're lining up the spices or folding towels the same way every time or doing that one oddly specific cleaning habit no one else understands, what you're really doing is recreating a moment of emotional stability that your mind still remembers. It's not nostalgia, it's nervous system memory. That's why organizing can feel so strangely emotional, why you can fix a drawer and feel your throat get tight, why clearing a closet can make you feel lighter in a way that has nothing to do with space. Because you're not just tidying objects, you're rearranging meaning. You're restoring a sense of self that got lost in all the noise of adulthood. And maybe that's why, when the room finally feels right, you don't just see order, you feel recognized. Like the space is reflecting back a version of you that you haven't seen in a long time. And here's the thing most people never understand about those who love organizing. It's not really about the house. It's never been about the house. It's about what the house does to your mind, how it shifts the way your body feels, how it gives you access to a calmer version of yourself that gets buried under the noise of everyday life. Because when the space around you is clear, you think differently. You breathe differently. You move through your day with a kind of steadiness that doesn't depend on motivation or mood or luck. It comes from alignment, your inner world and your outer world finally speaking the same language. And people who love organizing, they're not chasing some Pinterest fantasy. They're not polishing their lives for the sake of appearances. They're doing something much more honest. They're creating an environment where they can be okay, where their thoughts don't trip over each other, where emotions feel less sharp, where the day doesn't feel bigger than they are, when everything in the room has a place, something inside you does too. It's subtle, but it's real. Like the world stops demanding so much from you and finally lets you catch your breath. And maybe that's the quiet truth. Organizing is a way of coming home, not just to a space, but to yourself, to the version of you that feels capable, present, clear. The version of you that doesn't feel swallowed by life, but able to meet it. And once you've felt that, once you've lived even a moment where the room is calm and your thoughts are calm and your body is calm, you start craving it. Not out of control, but out of recognition. Because it feels like who you were always supposed to be. Organizing isn't about perfection. It's about peace. It's about belonging. It's about stepping into a space where nothing is screaming for your attention so you can finally hear yourself again. And in a world that pulls at you from every direction, that kind of quiet, that kind of clarity isn't just beautiful, it's necessary.